Tonight, let's talk about one of the strangest, funniest, and most beautiful novels ever written. A story where the devil visits Moscow. Don't worry about staying awake for all of it. Just settle in, breathe easy, and let this wild story carry you wherever it goes tonight. Imagine the devil himself walking into Soviet Moscow in the 1930s. Not with fire and brimstone, but wearing a nice suit and speaking perfect Russian. It's a hot spring evening at Patriarch's Ponds in Moscow. The lime trees are in bloom. Two literary men sit arguing on a bench. There's Berlioz, the editor. Bald, round spectacles, very sure of himself. And young Ivan, a poet, earnest and a little lost. They're debating Jesus. Berlioz insists that Jesus never existed. Pure myth, he says. Ivan nods along, though his antic religious poem wasn't quite atheist enough for the editor. Something changes when a stranger sits down beside them. Tall, foreign-looking, with one green eye and one that seems entirely black. A knowing smile. He introduces himself as a professor of black magic. Just visiting Moscow, he says. Berlioz and Ivan exchange an uneasy glance. The man seems perfectly sincere. Listen to what he claims next. He says he was personally present when Pontius Pilate interrogated a certain wandering philosopher almost 2,000 years ago. Picture ancient Jerusalem under a blazing sun. White marble columns and a man with the worst headache of his life. Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor. A prisoner is brought before him. Thin, bruised, barefoot, hands tied. But his eyes are calm. He calls the governor, "Good man." Pilate is startled. Pilate interrogates this strange prisoner, but finds himself fascinated. The man speaks simply, without fear, as though pain and death mean nothing to him at all. Yeshua tells Pilate that every person is good. That cowardice is the most terrible vice of all. These words hit the governor like a physical blow. Here's where something miraculous happens. Pilate's terrible migraine simply vanishes. While talking to this prisoner, the pain just lifts away like a veil removed. But then comes the political trap. Yeshua's words about earthly power threaten Pilate's position. Rome doesn't tolerate governors who show weakness. The moment freezes. Pilate wants to save this man. He truly does. But fear wins. He confirms the death sentence. Cowardice exactly as Yeshua described. The cruelest irony. Back in Moscow, at the park bench, Woland finishes his tale. Berlioz and Ivan sit stunned. The sun has dropped lower. Shadows stretch long across the pond. Then Woland says something terrible with perfect calm. He tells Berlioz that tonight, a Russian girl will cut off his head. Not a metaphor, a prophecy. Berlioz laughs nervously and hurries away. Ridiculous foreigner, clearly insane, he walks fast toward the tram stop, wanting to report this lunatic to the authorities. No one expects what happens next. A woman named Anushka has spilled sunflower oil near the tram tracks. A small, ordinary accident. But nothing tonight is ordinary. Berlioz steps onto the tracks. His foot hits the oil, he slips. The tramcar cannot stop. In one terrible instant, the prophecy comes true. Berlioz is dead. Ivan sees everything. He runs to the scene screaming. A crowd gathers around the impossible sight. The severed head rolls under the tramcar, spectacles still attached. Ivan whirls around and sees Woland still on the bench in the distance, watching calmly. The cat sits beside him. Ivan chases them through the darkening Moscow streets. The chase becomes surreal. Woland vanishes around corners and reappears blocks away. The enormous cat waves at Ivan from a windowsill. Moscow itself seems to shift and mock him. Somehow Ivan ends up at the Moscow River. He strips off his clothes and plunges in, swimming wildly, convinced the devil is following him through the water. Dripping wet, nearly naked, holding only a candle and a paper icon, Ivan bursts into the famous Griboidov House restaurant where Moscow's writers are dining elegantly. He shouts about the devil at Patriarch's Ponds, about Berlioz's head, about the giant cat. The writers stare at him as though he's lost his mind completely. Within the hour, men in white coats arrive. Ivan is restrained, sedated, and driven through the Moscow night to a psychiatric hospital. The door locks behind him. In his white hospital room, Ivan tries to write down everything that happened. But the more carefully he explains, the more insane his account sounds on paper. And so the devil walks free through Moscow, and the only person who knows the truth is locked in a madhouse. No one is coming to help. Not yet. Now let's meet the devil's entourage. Because Wooland didn't come to Moscow alone. He brought the most bizarre household you could ever imagine with him. First there's Koroviev, also called Fagot. Impossibly tall, skeleton thin, wearing a ridiculous checkered jacket and a tiny pince. Nez balanced on his enormous nose. Then there's Behemoth, an enormous black cat the size of a small pig who walks on his hind legs, drinks vodka, and has opinions about everything. Yes, a cat. Azazello is the muscle. Short, squat, brick red hair, one milky white eye, and a single fang protruding from his lip. He handles the violent assignments with casual efficiency. And Hela, the vampire maid. Beautiful, completely naked, with wild red hair and a terrible purple scar across her throat. She answers the apartment door without shame. Together they take over apartment number 50 on Sadovaya Street. The previous tenants simply vanish. No one can explain where they went. No one tries very hard. Morning brings a nasty surprise for Styopa Likadeev, the theater director who lives in that apartment. He wakes with a crushing hangover and cannot remember the previous night. Wooland is sitting calmly in Styopa's living room. "Good morning," he says. "You invited me to perform at your theater. Don't you remember?" Styopa remembers nothing at all. Before Styopa can protest, the room spins. When his vision clears, he's standing on a seaside promenade in Yalta, thousands of miles from Moscow, in his pajama. Meanwhile, back at the psychiatric hospital, Ivan Bezdomny stares at the ceiling of his white room. Then someone taps on his window. A face appears in the moonlight. The stranger climbs in through the window. He's gaunt, pale, with haunted eyes and a shabby dark coat. He says only this: "Call me the master. That is my name now." He tells Ivan his story. It begins with love. On a Moscow street he saw a woman carrying yellow flowers. Their eyes met, and everything in both their lives changed forever. She was carrying those ugly yellow flowers, he tells Ivan, and something in her eyes, a kind of loneliness, struck me like lightning. We both knew it immediately. Their love affair unfolded in his tiny basement apartment. She would come to him every afternoon, hanging her coat on the hook, and they would exist in their own hidden world. While she sat beside him, the master wrote his novel. A novel about Pontius Pilate. Every word felt channeled from somewhere beyond himself, as if the story demanded to be told. He finished the novel and submitted it everywhere. Every publisher rejected it. Then the critics attacked. They didn't just dislike it. They called it dangerous. They called him an enemy. One night, alone in his basement, the master burned his manuscript in the stove. Page by page, he fed his life's work to the flames. He watched every word turn to ash. After that, he went mad. He checked himself into this very hospital voluntarily. Margarita doesn't know where he is. She thinks he might be dead. He let her believe it. But here in the hospital, the master tells Ivan something strange. He whispers it like a secret: manuscripts don't burn. Someone told him that, someone with mismatched eyes. Far across Moscow, Margarita Nikolaevna sits in her comfortable apartment with her wealthy husband. She has everything a Soviet woman could want, except the man she loves. Now the story shifts to spectacle. The variety theater is packed tonight. Moscow's elite have come to see the mysterious foreign professor perform his black magic show. Wooland takes the stage. He doesn't perform tricks. He simply sits in a chair and speaks, and the entire audience falls silent. His mismatched eyes sweep across every row. Koroviev bounds onto the stage with a deck of cards. He snaps his fingers and money begins raining from the ceiling. Real Soviet rubles, fluttering down like paper snow. Behemoth waddles on stage next. The enormous cat challenges the theater MC to a debate, then simply reaches up and tears the man's head clean off his shoulders. Then a luxury women's fashion boutique materializes on stage. Parisian dresses, Italian shoes, French perfume. Everything Soviet women can't buy. All of it free tonight. Women rush the stage in a frenzy. They grab armfuls of Parisian couture, stripping off their plain Soviet dresses right there in the theater aisles to try on the finery. Outside the theater, the magic dissolves. The Parisian dresses vanish. Women find themselves walking through Moscow streets in nothing but their underwear. Woolen's lesson is delivered. Moscow's bureaucracy goes into overdrive. Reports flood every office. Black magic at the theater. Vanishing citizens. A cat drinking vodka. Soviet officials have no protocol for the devil. Anyone who investigates apartment 50 comes out changed. One man is transported to a distant city. Another signs a contract he can't remember. A third simply vanishes forever. Poor Nikanor Bosoy, the building chairman, gets the worst of it. Korolev slips foreign currency into his apartment. The police find it. Now Bozoy is an international criminal. Bosoy ends up in the psychiatric hospital too. He joins Ivan's growing collection of roommates, all claiming they've been victimized by supernatural forces. The doctors are overwhelmed. Picture the hospital filling up. Accountants who saw money rain. Officials transported to other cities. A man whose suit went to work without him. Moscow is cracking at the seams. Dr. Stravinsky listens to each new patient with professional calm. He's heard it all now. Except he keeps hearing the same impossible details from people who've never met each other. The psychiatric hospital becomes a mirror of Moscow itself. Outside, people pretend everything is normal. Inside, the ones who told the truth are called insane. Sound familiar? Now the story takes us back to ancient Jerusalem. Pilate has condemned Yeshua, but cannot let it rest. He secretly orders his spy chief Afranius to protect the prisoner somehow. But it's already too late. The execution procession marches through the dusty streets of Jerusalem. 3 condemned men carry wooden beams. The crowd parts to let death pass. In a side street, Judas receives his 30 pieces of silver in a leather pouch. He counts them carefully, smiling. But Pilate has already decided that Judas must die for his betrayal. Pilate sends Afranius with quiet, coded orders. Make it look like a robbery. The coins must be returned. The betrayer must be silenced. Justice through assassination, the Roman way. Judas dies in the Garden of Gethsemane. Knives flash in the moonlight. His body crumples among the olive trees. The silver coins scatter across the dark ground like fallen stars. Pilate sits alone on his palace terrace that night. His dog Banga lies at his feet. The moon floods everything with silver light. The governor has never felt more alone. Deep in that moonlit silence, Pilate understands. He will never escape this night. He chose fear over truth, power over justice. That choice will define him for 2,000 years. You might wonder why these two stories keep weaving together. Moscow and Jerusalem, the Master and Pilate. Because the Master's novel isn't fiction. It's the truth Wooland himself confirms. Somehow, in his basement apartment, the Master channeled events from 2,000 years ago. He wrote what actually happened between Pilate and Yeshua, without ever being told. Across the city, Margarita reads a newspaper article about strange events at the Variety Theater. A foreign professor. Black magic. Somehow she knows this connects to her lost master. Something crystallizes in Margarita. She stands up from that kitchen table a different woman. She will find the master. She will do anything it takes, even bargain with the devil himself. Margarita sits on a park bench the next morning, waiting for something she can't name. She left home without a word. Her old life is already behind her. A squat, ugly man in a bowler hat sits down beside her. One milky eye, a protruding fang, it's Azazello. He says he comes from a foreign gentleman who wants to meet her. Azazello hands her a small golden box. Inside gleams a mysterious cream. Rub this on your body tonight, he tells her, and everything you've lost will be returned to you. She returns home and waits for nightfall. Her husband chatters about his day. She nods, says nothing. The golden box sits hidden in her dresser drawer, waiting like a promise. Her husband leaves for the evening. The apartment falls silent. Margarita stands before her bedroom mirror, unclasps the golden box, and dips her fingers into the glowing cream. The transformation is instant and electric. As the cream touches her skin, years fall away. Her body grows young, powerful, wild. She feels gravity loosening its grip on her. Margarita is a witch now. She seizes a broom from the kitchen and leaps from the window. The Moscow night opens beneath her like a dark ocean. She is completely, magnificently free. She flies over the sleeping city. Church spires pass beneath her. The river gleams like mercury. Moscow from above is beautiful and strange, a labyrinth of light and shadow. There's a kind of joy in Margarita's flight that goes beyond magic. After months of grief and helplessness, she is finally doing something. Acting, power, not patience. But first, revenge. Margarita knows exactly where the literary critic Latunsky lives. The man who destroyed the master's novel with his vicious review. Tonight she pays him a visit. She smashes every window in Latunsky's apartment. Tears open his water pipes, floods his rooms, his books, his desk, his carefully curated career, all drenched and ruined in minutes. In the middle of her destruction, a small boy in the apartment below wakes up crying, frightened by the noise. Margarita stops immediately. She floats to his window and comforts him. This moment matters. Even transformed into a supernatural creature of vengeance, Margarita's compassion survives. Her humanity is not a weakness. It's the source of her real power. Back at Margarita's apartment, her maid Natasha discovers the leftover cream in the golden box. Curiosity wins. She rubs it on herself, and the transformation takes her too. Natasha needs something to ride. The downstairs neighbor Nikolai Ivanovich, a respectable Soviet citizen, is transformed into a large flying pig. She rides him laughing across the Moscow sky. Margarita descends to the Moscow River embankment. Azazello is waiting. He hands her a towel and a dark cloak. "Time to meet the gentleman who arranged all this," he says. She enters apartment 50, and the ordinary Soviet flat is gone. The space inside is vast, impossibly vast, with corridors stretching farther than any building could contain. Koroviv appears with an elaborate bow that nearly folds him in half. "My queen," he says, "you have been chosen for the greatest honor imaginable, hostess of Satan's annual ball. The deal is simple but absolute. She must be queen of the ball. She must welcome every guest, no matter how terrible, smile at every monster. In return, she gets one wish. Every guest at the ball will be dead. Murderers, poisoners, traitors. Risen from their graves for one night of infernal celebration. Margarita must treat each one with warmth." Margarita doesn't hesitate. She agrees without conditions. There is nothing she wouldn't endure to find the master. Love makes her braver than any hero in any story she's ever read. Hela and Behemoth prepare her. They dress Margarita as a queen, not with modesty but with dark magnificence. She is being armored for an ordeal, not adorned for a party. The final piece, a heavy diamond necklace placed around her throat. It settles against her skin like a chain of office. The weight of what she's agreed to made real in cold stones. The apartment completes its transformation around her. Walls dissolve into a tropical paradise. Columns rise from floors that weren't there moments ago. An orchestra begins to tune. Somewhere an orchestra strikes its first chord. The sound fills the impossible space like thunder inside a cathedral. Crystal glasses tremble on silver trays. The dead are coming. Satan's grand ball begins. From a vast fireplace, the dead emerge one by one. Each climbs out of the flames fully dressed, fully restored, ready to dance one night before returning to dust. Margarita stands at the top of the great staircase. Each guest is announced by name and crime. She must greet them, offer her hand, accept their kiss on her knee, every single one. The parade of sinners begins. Poisoners in Renaissance silks, counterfeiters in powdered wigs, men who murdered for love, for money, for power, all magnificent in their ruined finery. Hours pass. Hundreds of guests. Margarita's knee aches where they kiss it. Her smile freezes, but she never stops. She greets each damned soul as though they were a treasured friend. Behind her fixed smile, Margarita holds one thought like an anchor: the master. Every kiss she endures is a step closer to him. Every monster she welcomes buys his freedom. Famous historical villains arrive now. Names that made continents tremble. Emperors and inquisitors. Each bows before this Moscow woman in her borrowed crown, and she receives them all. Then comes a young woman, barely 20. A servant girl who killed her unwanted baby in despair. She weeps as she climbs the stairs. Unlike the others, her crime was born of suffering. Margarita breaks protocol. Instead of the formal greeting, she bends down and whispers to the girl. Something private, something kind. The girl's weeping slows. Someone has finally shown her mercy. The ball reaches its crescendo. A swimming pool filled with champagne appears in the center of the ballroom. The dead plunge in, fully clothed, laughing, splashing golden liquid everywhere. Behemoth sits at a grand piano and plays with astonishing skill. His furry black paws race across the keys, while the dead waltz around the champagne pool, surreal, magnificent, horrifying. At last, Woland appears. He descends the staircase in a magnificent black tailcoat, diamond stickpin blazing at his throat. The king of this infernal celebration has arrived. A silver platter is carried forward. On it rests the severed head of Berlioz, the editor from the park bench. His spectacles are still perched on his nose. Woland lifts the skull. Woland speaks to the skull of the man who denied everything supernatural. Each skull once housed a brain, he says. But what good is cleverness without imagination? He drinks from it. Margarita must drink too. The skull cup is offered to her. She takes it without flinching. The wine tastes of blood and fire. She drinks every drop. She has earned her place here. Between one heartbeat and the next, the ball ends. The dead vanish. The tropical garden withers. The swimming pool drains. Apartment 50 shrinks back to its ordinary Soviet dimensions. Margarita has survived it. Hours of greeting the damned, drinking from a skull, smiling through exhaustion. Now she stands before Woland to collect what was promised, her wish. Woland settles into an armchair, the skull, cup still in his hand. Well then, he says, you've been an excellent queen. Ask for anything in the world. What do you desire most? Here's where Margarita surprises even the devil. Her first request isn't for herself. She asks for mercy for the weeping servant girl from the ball. Stop tormenting her, she says. Woland grants it. But he tells her that mercy was not his debt to repay. She could have done that herself. Now ask for what you truly came here for. Ask for your own heart's desire. Give me back my master, Margarita says. That's all. Not wealth, not power, not eternal youth. Just a broken man in a hospital gown who wrote a novel no one wanted. Woland snaps his fingers. The air in the apartment shimmers. And there he is. The master, standing in his hospital gown, blinking, trembling, unable to believe what he's seeing. Margarita runs to him. She throws her arms around his thin body and holds on, as if the world might try to take him away again. He buries his face in her hair, neither speaks. The master can barely speak. He keeps touching her face, her hair, as if confirming she's real. I thought you were lost forever, he whispers. She tells him no, never, not ever. Then Woland performs his greatest trick. The master's manuscript appears, every page restored. The novel he burned page by page in the stove. Manuscripts don't burn. The master holds his novel against his chest. Everything he destroyed has been returned. Every word, every comma. In the devil's apartment, of all places, a writer's faith is restored. Woland turns the restored manuscript over in his hands. This novel, he says, contains the truth about Pontius Pilate, not history's version, the real one. The one no one dared write. Something profound clicks into place. The master's fiction and Woland's testimony are the same story. 2,000 years apart, one man wrote what another witnessed. Truth found its author. Let's return one last time to ancient Jerusalem. The execution is done. Night has fallen. Pilate sits alone on his moonlit terrace, unable to sleep, unable to forget what he allowed. A visitor arrives uninvited. Matthew Levy, the former tax collector who followed Yeshua everywhere. He carries a worn parchment scroll, the dead philosopher's last recorded words. Pilate unrolls the parchment. Among the philosopher's scattered sayings, one line burns: the greatest human vice is cowardice. the exact words Yeshua spoke to Pilate's face that morning. Those words describe Pilate's failing with surgical precision. He knew the truth that morning. He felt it when his headache vanished. And he sentenced truth to death anyway. He tried to save Yeshua through cleverness. Political maneuvering, coded messages, behind the scenes manipulation. Everything except the one thing that mattered: standing up and saying no. The execution plays again behind Pilate's closed eyes. 3 crosses on the hill called Golgotha. The sky darkening at midday, as if the sun itself refused to watch what men had done. Yeshua on the cross. Hours of suffering under the merciless Judean sun. A Roman soldier lifts a sponge soaked in vinegar to his cracked lips. Even this small mercy comes from a stranger. The executioner, a man called Mark Ratslayer, shows the only mercy available to him. His spear thrust is precise, ending hours of agony in a single instant, a soldier's grim kindness. A great storm breaks over Jerusalem. Lightning splits the sky. Rain pounds the dusty streets into rivers of mud. The world rages at what has been done on that hill today. On his terrace, Pilate knows the storm will never truly end for him. 2,000 years of moonlit nights await. He will sit and remember and regret, forever unable to undo one cowardly morning. Back in Moscow, the sky is clearing after the ball. Wolin's work in this city is nearly done. But before leaving, there are scores to settle and lessons to deliver across the capital. Across Moscow, Wolin's retinue delivers supernatural justice. Every petty tyrant, every corrupt official, every coward who abused their position faces a reckoning tailored precisely to their sin. One of the best absurdities: a government chairman's empty suit continues working at his desk, signing documents, answering phones. Nobody notices the difference for 3 full days. Behemoth and Koroviv decide to visit the Gribodov House restaurant, the same place where Ivan was dragged away raving. They request a table. The doorman demands to see their papers. When refused service, they burn the building down. The literary establishment's headquarters goes up in flames. Bulgakov's revenge on the critics who destroyed him, written in fire and comedy. There's real anger behind the comedy here. This building represents everything that crushed the master. The committees, the critics, the bureaucrats who decided which truths were allowed to exist. Moscow's secret police mobilize against Wolin's gang. Dozens of agents converge on apartment 50. They come with authority and weapons. They leave with confusion and missing trousers. They try shooting Behemoth. Bullets pass through the cat without effect. He clutches his chest theatrically, pretends to die with operatic grandeur, then springs back to life demanding an apology. Behemoth leaps up, entirely unharmed, and begins drinking kerosene from a saucer. He belches a fireball that singes an agent's eyebrows. The secret police retreat in undignified haste. What Behemoth represents is chaos itself. Pure ungovernable disorder in a society that demands total control. The Soviet system can manage people, but it cannot manage magic or truth. Now comes the strangest mercy. Azazello visits the master and Margarita in their restored basement apartment. He brings a gift, a bottle of wine, he says. From Woland. They understand what the wine is: poison, or liberation, or both. The master looks at Margarita. She looks at him. They drink together willingly, without fear. This is not death, it's departure. The wine does its work gently. The master's eyes close first, then Margarita's. They sink toward each other, still holding hands across the table. The candle flame doesn't waver. Their earthly bodies die in that basement, but they wake somewhere else entirely. Both of them together, standing in a darkness that feels warm rather than frightening. They are free. Somewhere in Moscow, Margarita's husband will come home to find her. He will call doctors and police. He will never understand what happened or where she truly went. The ordinary world closes over them. In the psychiatric hospital, Ivan feels a sudden shift. Something in the air changes. He sits up in bed, certain that the master has gone somewhere beyond reach. A sadness and a peace. Ivan lies back slowly. For the first time since Patriarch's pawns, a strange calm settles over him. He stops fighting. The truth is real, even if no one believes him. That's enough. Moscow at twilight doesn't know what has happened within its borders. The city goes on, trams run, people queue for bread. The devil was here, and the city barely noticed. On the Sparrow Hills overlooking Moscow, Woland gathers his retinue for the final time. The entire city spreads below them, glittering in the last light. Their work here is finished. The master and Margarita appear beside them, transformed. No longer the broken rider and the grieving lover. They stand tall, whole, ready for whatever comes next, together. Woland gazes across Moscow one last time. This peculiar city, he says. Its people are greedy, suspicious, and terrified. But not so different from any other century's inhabitants. He reflects on everything he witnessed. The money, grabbing at the theater, the corruption of officials, the cowardice of those who wouldn't speak truth. People haven't changed since Pilate's time, but then Woland admits something unexpected. They are also capable of love, of sacrifice, of choosing truth over safety. These small acts of courage almost make the rest of it worthwhile. Margarita proved it. She flew naked over a city to find one broken man, endured a ball of the damned, drank from a skull, and her first wish was mercy for a stranger, not herself. The master proved it too, in his own quieter way. He pursued truth in his writing, even when every institution in his country tried to silence him. The novel was his act of defiance. And Pilate proved the opposite. He had truth standing right in front of him, barefoot and bruised and brave. He recognized it, and he let fear make his decision for him. Night falls completely over Moscow. The city's lights multiply like earthbound stars. Below, millions of lives continue. Above, the devil prepares to ride into eternity. Between them, one question remains. Woland raises his cane. The time has come. The great departure begins. And as they prepare to leave this world, each member of Woland's retinue reveals their true and ancient form. Koroviv transforms first. The ridiculous checkered jacket dissolves. The mocking grin fades. In its place stands a dark violet knight with a sorrowful, beautiful face. He was never funny at all. His punishment, Woland explains, was for a bad joke. A terrible pun about light and darkness, made centuries ago. For that, he was condemned to play the fool until the end of time. Behemoth changes next. The enormous vodka-drinking cat dissolves into light. A slim young page boy emerges, the most playful of all demons, his mischief now wearing its truest face. Azazello transforms into his true self, a demon of the desert, of waterless and lightless places. His squat body stretches into something lean and merciless. The bowler hat vanishes like a bad memory. Finally, Woland himself, the elegant professor, vanishes. In his place rides a dark horseman from beyond time itself. No longer amused, no longer sardonic, only vast and ancient and necessary. Black horses appear for all of them. The company mounts and rides skyward. Moscow shrinks beneath their hooves. The city becomes a constellation of earthbound lights, then a memory, then nothing. A figure appears in their path. Matthew Levy, the tax collector who followed Yeshua, now a messenger from a higher power. He brings a request from Yeshua himself to Woland. Yeshua has read the Master's novel, Matthew says. He asks that the Master be granted peace. Not paradise, not reward. Simply peace. An end to suffering. Can Woland arrange this? Not light, Matthew emphasizes. The Master doesn't deserve light, but he has earned peace. Rest from the world that broke him. A quiet place where the creative spirit can finally breathe. Woland agrees. Then he turns to Matthew with a philosophical challenge. You speak of light and I speak of shadow. But tell me, what would your light look like if darkness didn't exist? Without shadows, what would light look like? Without evil, how would you recognize good? Woland's deepest argument, darkness, is not the enemy of light. It's the canvas light is painted on. This is the novel's deepest idea. Good and evil aren't at war. They're partners in making the world complete. Woland doesn't oppose God, he completes the picture. Darkness serves light. Matthew Levy departs without farewell. The riders turn their horses toward the moonlit horizon. Below them, Moscow fades entirely. They fly towards something older and stranger than any city. Below them on the moonlit path, a figure sits on a stone chair. He has been sitting there for 2,000 years. His dog lies beside him. Even from this height, they can see his face. Pontius Pilate. 2,000 years of moonlit imprisonment. Every night he sits and talks to himself about the morning he betrayed truth. His dog is the only one who listens. Pilate on the moonlit path. His faithful dog Banga hasn't left his side in 2,000 years. The Roman governor and his hound, frozen together in an eternity of waiting. For 20 centuries, Pilate has repeated the same confession to the empty air. He insists he did everything he could. But even he knows that's not true. He didn't do the one thing. His one regret, spoken endlessly to the moon, he didn't walk beside the wandering philosopher that morning. Didn't save him. Didn't choose truth over safety. That single failure defines eternity. The master looks down from his horse and recognizes Pilate instantly. This is the man he wrote about for years. His character, his obsession, his creation made real and suffering below. Woolen turns to the master on his black horse. "Your novel is not yet finished," he says. "There is one final line to write. One sentence that will set your character free." The master cups his hands to his mouth and calls down through the moonlit air. 5 words that change everything.
"You are free!"
"He is waiting for you." Pilate hears them like thunder. Pilate rises from his stone chair for the first time in 20 centuries. His legs tremble. The stone is warm where he sat. Before him, the moonlit path opens like a road that finally has a destination. Yeshua walks toward Pilate on the moonbeam. The wandering philosopher and the governor who condemned him. They will walk this path together now. Talking, arguing, forgiving, forever. The two figures walk away together along the moonlit path. Their voices carry faintly, philosophy, regret, forgiveness. Banga trots between them. 2,000 years of imprisonment, ended by 5 words. The master has done it. His novel is complete. Not just the pages, the living story itself resolved. He freed his character with the authority only a creator possesses, the writer's truest power. Now the master and Margarita receive their own reward. Wooland leads the company forward through the silver landscape toward something waiting beyond the cliffs. Their eternity approaches. They arrive at a small house. A garden surrounds it. A creek murmurs nearby. Candlelight glows in every window. It's simple and beautiful, and it has been waiting for them. Cherry blossoms fall gently onto the path. A Venetian-style bridge crosses the creek. The air smells of flowers and clean water. This isn't paradise. It's something more personal than that. Inside the cottage, the master sees a desk, clean paper, an inkwell, a new pen, everything a writer needs and nothing a writer fears. No editors, no critics, no censors, only the blank page. Margarita finds their bedroom. White sheets on a wide bed. An open window with the garden breeze carrying the scent of blossoms. She touches the pillow and knows they're finally home. This is their eternity. Not the blinding light of paradise, not the glory of saints. A quiet house, a writing desk, a garden, and each other. Peace earned through courage and love. The master asks quietly, "Does this mean we're dead?" Woolen, standing in the doorway about to leave forever, only smiles. Some questions don't need answers. Some answers would ruin the peace. Margarita takes the master's hand. Whatever this place is, afterlife, dream, reward, they are together in it. That was always the only thing that mattered. The rest is silence. She whispers to him, "Listen." No critics arguing in the next room. No police knocking at the door. No publishers returning manuscripts. Just the creek and the witness. The master sits at his new desk. But he doesn't write. He simply looks through the window at the garden, at the creek, at the blossoms falling. Perhaps just looking is enough now. Maybe he doesn't need to write anymore. The one story that mattered has been told and completed. His character is free. His lover is beside him. The pen can rest, and so can he. Wooland and his retinue ride away into the night sky. Their work is complete. Moscow has been tested and measured, and found to be exactly as human as everywhere else. Moscow wakes up the next morning with a collective hangover. Strange memories surface. Did money really fall from a ceiling? Did a cat set a building on fire? Surely not. The authorities produce a rational explanation within days. Mass hypnosis, they announce. A criminal gang using suggestion techniques. Nothing supernatural. Move along, case closed, sealed. Apartment 50 on Sadovaya Street is sealed with police tape. But neighbors whisper that, on full moon nights, the lights inside flicker. Piano music drifts under the door, a cat laughs. The Variety Theater reopens within a week. New management, new shows. Nobody on stage mentions the evening when money fell from the sky and women lost their clothes. Official amnesia. The literary world resumes its petty politics. New editors replace old ones. New critics sharpen their pens. The same system that crushed the master continues turning, grinding, producing approved truths. Ivan Bezdomny recovers slowly in the hospital. Weeks pass. The bandages come off. The raving stops. He's released into a Moscow that has conveniently forgotten everything he witnessed. He abandons poetry forever. The young firebrand poet becomes Professor Ponyrev, a quiet historian at a Moscow institute. He publishes careful academic papers. He never mentions the devil. But every full moon, the old restlessness returns. Ivan feels it in his chest like a second heartbeat. Memories stir. The park bench, the mismatched eyes, the tramcar, the head rolling. On those nights, Ivan walks to Patriarch's Ponds. He sits on the very bench where it all began. He waits. Nothing supernatural happens, but the waiting feels necessary, like a private ritual. When he finally sleeps on those moonlit nights, Ivan dreams. He sees the silver path between stone cliffs. Pilate and Yeshua walking together at last, talking endlessly, the dog trotting between them. He sees the master and Margarita too, in their cottage garden. She's arranging flowers by the window. He's sitting at his desk, not writing, just looking at the light, both perfectly at rest. Ivan wakes with tears on his face. The dream fades, but the feeling remains, a warmth, a certainty that the story ended well. He lies still, letting the moonlight hold him. His wife stirs beside him. She gives him a sleeping pill and a glass of water. He swallows it gratefully. The moon passes over Moscow. The restlessness fades until next month. The novel's final image belongs to Moscow itself, the city under moonlight, ordinary and magical at once, every building holding secrets, every street remembering what the officials have chosen to forget. Every person sleeping in those buildings carries their own private encounter with wonder. A dream they can't explain. A memory that doesn't fit. A moment when the world was stranger than it should be. Some remember clearly and stay silent. Some forget entirely and feel only a vague unease. But the city itself remembers. Moscow is different now, whether anyone admits it or not. The story ends where it began, at Patriarch's Ponds, with a question about truth. Berlioz said Jesus never existed. Woolen said he was there. The truth was sitting on the bench all along. What is truth? Pilate asked that question on his judgment balcony. The master tried to answer it in his novel. Woolen tested it in the streets of Moscow. The question echoes across every century. Bulgakov's answer isn't a definition you can look up. Truth isn't a fact. It's what you're willing to sacrifice for. It's what you do when the easy path leads away from what you know is right. Cowardice was the greatest sin because Pilate knew the truth. He felt it heal his headache. He heard it in Yeshua's voice, and he chose his career over his conscience. That choice cost him eternity. The master knew the truth too, and it nearly destroyed him. Critics attacked. Publishers rejected. Society declared his vision dangerous. He burned his work and broke his own mind. But the work survived. Margarita's truth was simpler and maybe braver. She loved someone. She loved him completely. And she was willing to become a witch, a queen of demons, a dead woman for that love. Even the devil served truth in his own dark way. He didn't create evil in Moscow. He simply removed the masks. Every corrupt official, every greedy citizen, every coward was already there. The novel's central question reaches beyond its pages. In a world saturated with comfortable lies, Who has the courage to speak honestly, to write honestly, to love honestly? Do you? Bulgakov wrote this novel knowing it could never be published in his lifetime. He wrote it anyway. For 12 years, in secret, while his friends disappeared into prison camps. His own act of courage. And now, before we wind towards sleep, let's spend some time with the man behind this extraordinary story. Who was Mikhail Bulgakov? How did he become the kind of writer who creates devils? Let the story settle for a moment. We've traveled from a Moscow park bench to the gates of eternity tonight. We've watched a woman fly and a man freed from 2,000 years of guilt. If you're still awake, stay with me for the author's story. It's remarkable in its own right. And if you're drifting, that's perfect too. The story has already given you everything it has. What remains now is understanding. Why this book exists, what it cost to write, and why, decades later, people across the world still read it and find themselves changed by it. The master's story mirrors Bulgakov's own life almost exactly. A destroyed manuscript, persecution by critics, a devoted woman who protected his work, art crushed by authority, truth that survived anyway. If the novel is about anything, it's about the courage required to create in hostile times. To write the truth when lies are mandatory, to insist on beauty when ugliness is policy, and about the stubborn survival of truth. Manuscripts don't burn, Woland promised. The fire can destroy paper, but not the idea on it. The censor can ban a book, but not its meaning. Now let's meet the man who believed that deeply enough to spend his last 12 years proving it. Mikhail Afanasyevich Bulgakov. Born in Kiev, 1891. Died in Moscow, knowing his book would live. Mikhail Bulgakov was born in Kiev in 1891, the eldest of 7 children. His father was a theology professor. The household was full of books, church music, and argument. Young Mikhail grew up hearing Bible stories and opera in equal measure. His mother played piano. His father lectured on church history. The supernatural and the artistic were never separate for him. He trained as a doctor at Kiev University. Medicine gave him something essential: precision. The clinical eye that would later describe both Moscow's absurdities and Jerusalem's cruelties with equal clarity. During the Russian Civil War, he served as a field surgeon in remote villages. He saw suffering that would haunt his writing forever. He also became briefly addicted to morphine, a battle he won alone. In 1921, Bulgakov abandoned medicine and moved to Moscow. He would be a writer, he decided. In the chaos of post-revolutionary Russia, he chose the most dangerous profession imaginable. His early writing was sharp, funny, and dangerous. Short stories that satirized the new Soviet bureaucracy. A novel about the Civil War that showed both sides as human. The authorities noticed immediately. His play The Days of the Turbans premiered at the Moscow Art Theater and became a sensation. It showed a white Russian family during the Civil War with sympathy and complexity. The censors were outraged. Here's the strangest detail. Joseph Stalin himself attended that play, not once, 15 times. The dictator loved the play even though it humanized people he considered enemies of the state. This bizarre relationship with Stalin would define Bulgakov's life. The most powerful man in Russia admired the work of a writer he simultaneously persecuted, patron and tormentor in one person. By the late 1920s, every one of Bulgakov's works was banned. Every play pulled from theaters. Every story removed from magazines. He could not earn a living. He could barely survive. Desperate, Bulgakov wrote a letter to the Soviet government. "Let me work," he begged, "or let me emigrate. A writer who cannot publish is a writer who is slowly dying." The letter was extraordinary. On April 18, 1930, the telephone rang in Bulgakov's apartment. The voice on the other end was unmistakable. Stalin himself was calling. Imagine that moment. The devil on the line. "Stay in Moscow," Stalin told him. A job was arranged at the art theater. But no real promise of creative freedom. The writer was kept alive but kept silent, a gilded cage without the gold. That same year, 1928, Bulgakov began writing The Master and Margarita. The first draft poured out of him. A novel about the devil visiting Moscow, exposing every lie the city lived by. Then he burned it. Just like the master in his novel, Bulgakov fed his own first draft to the fire. Fear, despair, or artistic dissatisfaction, historians still argue about why. But manuscripts don't burn. Bulgakov started over. From memory, from notes, from sheer determination, he rebuilt his novel from the ashes. The second version was better. The third better still. For 12 years he wrote and revised, knowing it could never be published while he lived. 12 years of secret labor on a book the world might never read. That takes a special kind of faith. His third wife, Elena Shilovskaya, became his Margarita. She was fierce, devoted, and fearless. She understood what the novel meant. She made its survival her mission alongside his. Elena copied manuscripts by hand, hid them in different locations, protected them from informers and secret police searches. She was the firewall between Bulgakov's truth and the state's desire to destroy it. By 1939, Bulgakov was dying. Kidney disease, inherited from his father, was shutting down his body. His eyesight failed. But he kept dictating revisions to Elena from his bed. His last words to Elena about the novel were these: so that they know. So that they know. He needed the world to know what he had seen, what he had understood. Truth was the point. Mikhail Bulgakov died on March 10, 1940. He was 48 years old. The novel was unfinished in its final details, but complete in its vision. Elena held the manuscript and a promise. Elena spent the next 26 years protecting that manuscript. Through World War II, through Stalin's final terrors, through the slow thaw that followed. She waited for the moment the world was ready. In 1966, a literary magazine published a censored version. 26 years after Bulgakov's death, his words finally reached readers. The censors had cut the most dangerous passages, but the power remained. The full uncensored text appeared in 1973. Every word restored, every scene intact. Bulgakov's complete vision finally existed in the world. Elena lived just long enough to see it happen. The novel's structure mirrors its deepest themes. Two worlds, Moscow and Jerusalem, running in parallel. Satan and the philosopher, art and power, lies that rule and truth that endures. Why make the devil the hero? Because in a country where the state controlled all moral authority, only someone outside that system could tell the truth. Satan was the ultimate outsider. Woolen doesn't plant evil. He holds up a mirror. The money lust at the theater was already in those hearts. The corruption in the officials was already in their drawers. He merely revealed it. The Moscow chapters are savage comedy. Bulgakov skewered every aspect of Soviet bureaucracy. The housing shortages, the literary committees, the secret police, the collective amnesia that kept the system running. Every ridiculous official in the novel had a real world counterpart. Bulgakov knew these people personally. The literary bureaucrats who banned his plays drank vodka at the same restaurants he couldn't afford. The Jerusalem chapters are written in an entirely different register. Spare, luminous, almost biblical. Where Moscow is chaos and comedy, Jerusalem is stillness and tragic weight. Two voices, one author. Two completely different styles, two worlds separated by 20 centuries. But the same question echoes through both of them. What is truth, and what happens when cowardice silences it? Bulgakov drew deeply from the Faust legend. Margarita's bargain with the devil echoes Goethe's Gretchen. The novel's epigraph comes straight from Faust, that power which wills evil and works good. But Bulgakov inverts the Faust tradition brilliantly. In his novel, the devil is more just than any human authority. Woolen punishes the guilty and rewards the brave. The state does the opposite. Woolen only punishes those who deserve it. The greedy lose their stolen money. The liars are exposed. The cowards face their fears. Meanwhile, the Soviet system imprisoned people for telling the truth. The novel's epigraph from Goethe sets up everything. I am part of that power, which eternally wills evil and eternally works good. Woolen quotes it as his own identity. The paradox is the point. This describes Woolen perfectly. Evil in form, good in function. A devil who serves justice when the official systems of justice have become tools of oppression. The moral universe, inverted. Bulgakov's version of Jesus is equally radical. Yeshua HaNozri is not the divine Son of God performing miracles. He's a wandering philosopher, human, vulnerable and compassionate, no halo. Just truth. By making Yeshua fully human, Bulgakov makes his truth more powerful, not less. If this philosopher is just a man, then his bravery before Pilate is something any human could aspire to. That's the point. Bulgakov's theology doesn't fit neatly into any box. Neither fully atheist nor conventionally Christian. He creates a universe where God exists but operates through the most unexpected agents, including Satan. The novel suggests something brave: truth doesn't need miracles to survive. It doesn't need institutional backing. It just needs someone willing to speak it, and someone willing to preserve it. Consider the world Bulgakov wrote in 1930s Moscow. Stalin's Great Purge killing hundreds of thousands. Show trials. Midnight arrests. Neighbors informing on neighbors. Terror as national policy. Writers vanished into prison camps. Bulgakov's friends, colleagues, people who had sat at his dinner table. Arrested, exiled, shot. The literary community he belonged to was systematically dismantled. To write a novel with the devil as hero in this environment was nearly suicidal. Every page was evidence of independent thought. Every joke was a potential death sentence. Bulgakov wrote it anyway. The master's decision to burn his manuscript in the novel reflects the real desperation of Soviet writers. Many destroyed their own work preemptively. Better to burn it yourself than let them find it. Manuscripts don't burn became more than a line in a novel. It became a battle cry, a declaration that truth is indestructible, that no fire, no censor, no dictator can permanently silence an honest voice. The novel is simultaneously a love story, a political satire, a theological meditation, and an anarchic farce. It shouldn't work. These genres shouldn't coexist. But in Bulgakov's hands, they dance together perfectly. No other novel in world literature attempts all four registers at once and succeeds. Bulgakov could make you laugh, weep, think, and tremble within the span of 3 pages. That range is his genius. His genius was making the impossible feel inevitable. When a giant cat shoots a pistol, you believe it. When the devil drinks from a skull, it feels natural. Magic as ordinary as breathing. Bulgakov's legacy begins with this novel, but his influence radiates outward, through film, music, theater, and the imaginations of readers on every continent. Let's follow that legacy now. When the novel first appeared in 1966, the effect on Russian readers was seismic. Here was a voice from the grave, speaking truths no living writer dared to say aloud. Before official publication, samizdat copies had circulated for years. Hand-typed manuscripts, carbon copies of carbon copies, passed from friend to friend in secret. Underground literature keeping the truth alive. Suddenly, the suppressed masterpiece was available to everyone. Russians devoured it. Lines formed at bookshops. People read it on the metro, in parks, aloud to their children. A cultural earthquake. It became the most beloved Russian novel of the 20th century, more widely read than Solzhenitsyn, more quoted than Pasternak. Bulgakov, dead for decades, became the most present writer in Russia. International translations followed rapidly. English, French, German, Spanish, Japanese. The world outside Russia discovered that one of the greatest novels of the century had been hidden from them. Patriarch's Pawns in Moscow became a literary pilgrimage site. Fans seek out the bench where Woolen first appeared. They sit where the devil sat and look for signs of magic in the ordinary afternoon. The stairwell of the real apartment building on Sadovaya Street became a canvas. Fans covered every wall with graffiti. Quotes, drawings of Behemoth, love letters to Margarita, declarations that manuscripts don't burn. A Bulgakov museum opened in that building. The fictional apartment 50 became a real cultural institution. Visitors walk through rooms where the devil once held court, where Behemoth drank vodka. The novel's influence rippled outward through world literature. Gabriel Garcia Marquez acknowledged a debt to Bulgakov. The Russians' blending of the magical and the mundane opened doors for Latin American writers. Salman Rushdie's work echoes Bulgakov's fearless blending of satire and the supernatural. Both writers understood that fantasy can carry truths too dangerous for realism. Both paid a price for their honesty. Mick Jagger wrote, "Sympathy for the Devil," after reading the novel. The song captures Woolen's voice with uncanny precision. Charming, dangerous, ancient, speaking as a witness to every human atrocity. The song spread Woolen's spirit to millions who would never read the novel. Bulgakov's Devil entered popular culture through a completely unexpected door. A guitar riff and a samba beat. Film directors have tried repeatedly to capture the novel on screen. Each attempt struggles with the same challenge. How do you film something that exists most powerfully in the reader's imagination? A major Russian television series in 2005 brought the story to millions of new viewers. For many younger Russians, this was their first encounter with Bulgakov's Moscow, Woolen's Smile, Margarita's Flight. Theater adaptations have flourished across Europe and beyond. The ball scene in particular becomes breathtaking live theater. The dead waltzing, the champagne flowing, the cat playing piano on a real stage. Opera, ballet, graphic novels. Each art form has claimed a piece of Bulgakov's vision. The story proves endlessly adaptable because its core elements are universal love, truth, sacrifice, and the comedy of power. Why does this novel keep getting reimagined? Because every generation finds something new in it. The book doesn't stay the same. It changes with its readers, reflecting whatever truth they need most. For Soviet readers, it was a coded protest. Every scene of bureaucratic absurdity was a wink at shared suffering. Every act of supernatural justice was a fantasy of accountability the real system never provided. Western readers discovered it as a dazzling work of imaginative fiction. The comedy, the romance, the supernatural spectacle. Divorced from its political context, the novel still dazzles on pure storytelling power. Modern readers find yet another resonance. In an age of manufactured news and institutional dishonesty, the novel's insistence on truth feels more urgent than ever. Woolen's mirror is still needed. The theme of censorship feels eternal because it is. Every era has its forbidden truths. Every system of power decides which voices are allowed and which are silenced. The specifics change. The pattern never does. The love story between the master and Margarita transcends its Russian setting. Devotion against impossible odds. Love that doesn't calculate cost. The willingness to lose everything for one person. Margarita's willingness to become a witch for love resonates everywhere. She didn't wait to be rescued. She flew. She fought. She bargained with darkness on her own terms and won. The Jerusalem chapters continue to provoke theological debate. Bulgakov's Yeshua is no one's orthodoxy. He's too human for traditionalists, too spiritual for atheists, too compassionate for cynics. He's perfect. Scholars still argue about the ending. The master receives peace, not light. Is that a reward or a consolation prize? Is Bulgakov saying art brings rest but not salvation? He receives peace but not light. Some read this as sadness. The master wasn't good enough for heaven. Others read it as Bulgakov's deepest wisdom. After sufficient suffering, rest is the truest paradise. Perhaps peace is the highest gift for a man who knew only turmoil. After madness, censorship, burned manuscripts, and persecution, to simply rest, to simply be, could be everything. Can you feel that? Behemoth the cat became a Russian cultural icon. Plush toys, street art, internet memes. The vodka-drinking, chess-playing, gun-wielding demon cat is arguably Russia's most beloved literary character. Manuscripts don't burn, is quoted daily across Russia. On protest signs, in graduation speeches, in quiet conversations between writers. 4 words carrying an entire philosophy of resistance and hope. The phrase has become a universal statement about the persistence of truth. It travels beyond Russian borders, beyond literature, beyond Bulgakov's original intention, into the shared vocabulary of human defiance. In the age of digital information, Manuscripts literally cannot burn anymore. Every text can be copied infinitely, stored in clouds, spread across networks. Bulgakov's metaphor has become technological reality. But the deeper truth goes beyond technology. Manuscripts don't burn because truth lives in human memory and courage. Even if every copy were destroyed, someone would remember. Someone would rewrite. Someone would speak. Bulgakov couldn't have known his novel would survive. When he died in 1940, its future was entirely uncertain. He trusted Elena. He trusted time. Both proved worthy of that trust. 26 years between his death and publication. Elena never gave up. She copied, she preserved, she waited. When the moment came, the manuscript was ready. Her devotion matched Margarita's exactly. The real Margarita saved the real manuscript. Life imitating art, imitating life. Bulgakov wrote about a woman who would do anything for her writer, and then his own wife became exactly that woman. Today the novel is required reading in Russian schools. The book that was banned, burned, hidden, and smuggled is now assigned as homework. The transformation from forbidden to canonical in a single lifetime. Young Russians discover it fresh each year and find it as wild and funny and devastating as the day it was written. Bulgakov's humor hasn't aged a day. Absurdity is timeless. The humor hasn't dated because bureaucratic absurdity is eternal. Bulgakov satirized the Soviet system, but his targets, pomposity, corruption, willful ignorance, exist in every society, in every century. The love hasn't faded because desperate devotion is timeless. People still sacrifice everything for the ones they love. People still fly through the night, metaphorically or otherwise, to reach each other. And the question hasn't been answered. What is truth? Who has the courage to speak it? That question was ancient when Pilate asked it, and it will be new when someone asks it tomorrow. We've traveled a long way together tonight, from a hot afternoon at Patriarchus Pons to the gates of eternity, and back again to the moonlit city where it all began. We met the devil in a summer suit, and he turned out to be more honest than every official in Moscow. His crimes were exposure. His punishments were truth. His gift was a restored manuscript. We watched a woman fly naked over Moscow on a broomstick, and understood that it was the most rational thing anyone did in the entire story. Love demanded flight, she flew. We sat with Pontius Pilate under the moon for 2,000 years. We felt the weight of his one terrible morning, and we heard the words that finally set him free. And we met a writer who burned his own book and a wife who kept it alive for 26 years. The story behind the story proved just as extraordinary as the fiction itself. Bulgakov's greatest gift was laughter in the dark. He proved that comedy is not the opposite of seriousness. It's the sharpest weapon against tyranny. A joke can cut deeper than any sword. The novel teaches that love is the strongest magic, stronger than Woolen's powers, stronger than death. Margarita's love moved the devil himself to an act of mercy. That's real sorcery. It teaches that cowardice is the only unforgivable sin, not because it's the worst thing a person can do, but because it's the betrayal of what a person knows to be right. Pilate knew. He failed. And it teaches that art survives. Pages burn, writers die, empires fall, but the story remains. Somewhere, always, someone is reading the master's novel for the first time. Manuscripts don't burn. If you've stayed awake this far, thank you for the company. It's been a genuine pleasure sharing this story with you tonight. Not many tales deserve a full hour, this one does. And if you drifted off somewhere along the way, that's perfect. The story will be here whenever you want to return. It's patient. It's been waiting since 1940. A few more hours won't matter. Picture the moonlit path one last time. Silver light on ancient stone. The cliffs rising on either side like the walls of a great cathedral. Everything still, everything at peace. Pilate walks that path no more. After 2,000 years, he's been freed by 5 words from a writer who loved him enough to end his suffering. The chair is empty, the vigil is over. The master sits in his quiet garden. The pen rests beside clean paper he may never use. Margarita reads beside him. The creek murmurs its endless simple song, "This is enough." Somewhere in Moscow right now, the moon is rising, full and silver and patient. And if you listen carefully through the nighttime quiet, you might hear a very large cat laughing. Maybe Behemoth is still out there, drinking vodka on a windowsill, riding the metro at midnight, setting small fires in buildings that deserve it. Moscow's most beloved troublemaker, never truly gone. The city sleeps and the city dreams. Millions of private worlds behind millions of windows. And in those dreams, anything is possible. Even the devil having tea with a cat. Somewhere a woman flies over rooftops, not on a broomstick, perhaps, but in the way love makes you fly, recklessly, joyfully, without caring what the world below thinks of you. Somewhere a writer finds their pages restored, every word returned, nothing truly lost. The novel they thought was finished, destroyed, alive again, glowing with its own quiet fire. Somewhere a philosopher walks with the man who condemned him, and forgives him completely. Not because the wrong was small, but because forgiveness is the only path wide enough for two people. These images are yours now, the flying woman, the burning pages that return, the moonlit path, the cat with the vodka. Carry them gently into whatever comes next for you tonight. The night is quiet now. The story has been told. Let your breathing slow down just a little. There's nowhere to go, nothing to solve. Just this comfortable darkness and the memory of a good tale. You don't need to hold on to any of it. The words will wait. Like manuscripts that don't burn, good stories never truly disappear. They sit patiently until someone reaches for them again. Good stories don't disappear. They wait patiently on shelves and in memories. They wait in the way the moonlight waits on patriarch's pawns, always there, always ready for whoever needs it. Perhaps tomorrow you'll pick up the novel itself. Feel the weight of those pages in your hands. Discover the 1,000 details we couldn't fit into a single hour. There's so much more waiting inside. Or perhaps this telling was enough for tonight. Either way, you've spent an hour with one of the greatest novels the 20th century produced. That's not nothing. That's quite a lot, actually. A novel about love and courage and the strange mercy of the devil. About a cat who drank vodka and a woman who flew over Moscow. About truth that refuses to die. Written by a man who knew he was dying. Dictated from a bed he would never leave. For a world that wasn't ready to hear what he had to say. But the world caught up. The world always catches up eventually. It has to. Because truth is patient. And manuscripts don't burn, and love, real love, outlasts everything that tries to prevent it. Bulgakov trusted that. He trusted his wife. He trusted his story. He trusted that somewhere, someday, someone would read his words and understand. Tonight, that someone was you. Manuscripts don't burn. Neither does love, or courage, or a story told well on a quiet night. These things endure. They find their way. They always find their way. The moon is shining somewhere right now. Full and silver and ancient. The same moon that lit Pilot's terrace. The same moon that guided Margarita's flight. It shines for you tonight. Let it shine on you as you rest. You've earned this quiet. An hour of Moscow and Jerusalem and magic and love. Let it settle. Let it go. Let sleep come when it's ready. Good night from the Master and Margarita, safe in their garden. From Wooland and his magnificent cat. From Pilot, walking free at last. And from Bulgakov, who trusted you with his truth. Sleep well tonight. Dream of moonlit paths and flying women and cats who drink vodka. And remember, always manuscripts don't burn. Good night.